Hello my friends and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as J-Monster, and you're watching the first episode of a new historical miniseries that's going to deal with the War of the Elves of Sauron, the forging of the Great Rings of Power, and is going to culminate in the War of the Last Alliance. Hopefully we'll have the Siege of Barad-dûr in there with the actual Tower of Barad-dûr. I've got some technical stuff on my end that I need to work out before that can be possible, but hopefully that is what we're going to see. And I'll talk a little bit about the history here and you guys can enjoy the battle. It's been fairly heavily edited. I'm going to try and do that for some of the longer miniseries just because it's a siege and it's a bit of a slog. So you guys have to tell me what you think of the new format. I'm very curious to hear your opinions on it. There will be some commentary in this as well, just sort of on what's going on in the video. But for the first little while, it's going to be history. So let's talk a little bit about the War of the Elves of Sauron, or of the Elves and Sauron, and the fall of this city, which is Ost-in-Edhil, which means Fortress of the Elves. Now, this battle over the Rings of Power takes place in the Second Age, and is fought, the War of the Elves of Sauron, and in case is fought largely in Eregion. It lasts from 1693 to 1701 Second Age. In this war, Sauron suffers a fairly temporary defeat, but he does gain the 9 Rings of Power, which he gives to men to create the Nazgûl. And he also gains 6 of the 7 rings. One of the rings was given to Durin III of Khazad-dûm because of the great friendship that existed between the elves of Eregion and the dwarves of Khazad-dûm, which is pretty much unlike any friendship between those two peoples that has happened in any age before or afterwards. So Durin was given this ring, and it later finds its way into the possession of, I believe, Thrain and Thror, Thorin's father and grandfather, respectively. But Sauron, well, actually we'll talk a little bit about ring lore to begin with. Sauron initially instructs the elves in the creation of the various rings of power. He has a hand in the making of the 9 and the 7. But and he presents himself to the elves as Annatar, the Lord of Gifts. But Celebrimbor, one of the most gifted craftsmen of the elves, since probably Feanor, and is also happens to be a son of one of the sons of Feanor, though I can't remember which ones, so you have to forgive me. He creates the 3 elven rings, Narya, Vilya, and Nenya, which he sends to... the first 2 he sends to Gil-galad and Lindon, and Nenya, the Ring of Adamant, he gives to Galadriel. Now, Sauron betrays the elves, and he forges the One Ring in 1500, Second Age, and when he puts it on in the 1600s, he attempts to take over the minds of the people that of those who wield the 9 and the 7. But Celebrimbor hides the 3 from Sauron, and he had no hand in making them, so he can exercise no power over the people that wear them, unless I suppose if he gets the One Ring. I'm not entirely too clear on that point, as it seems to go back and forth. But Sauron, enraged that the elves would try to hinder him in any way, declares war on the elves in 1693 Second Age. His forces invade Eregion in 1695, and he proceeds to Eregion to capture the rings. Celeborn, yes, that is Celeborn, Galadriel's husband, leads a sortie from Eregion to meet the vanguard of Sauron's army. He was joined by reinforcements from Lindon, led by Elrond. At this point, Imladris doesn't exist, but this is very close to the founding of Imladris. Unfortunately, they are beaten back because of Sauron's great numbers. And Elrond himself is almost overwhelmed, but Durin III leads an assault on the rear of Sauron's army, allowing Elrond the opportunity to escape northward. And when Sauron turns all of his attention onto the dwarves of Khazad-dûm, they flee inside of Moria. Well, it's not Moria yet, it is still Khazad-dûm. And they close the door behind them, and Sauron is unable to attack them. However, this leaves the elves of Eregion and Celebrimbor completely isolated and cut off from their allies. And so the city of Ost-in-Edhil is besieged, and this is a place that contains a great craftsman workshop. It's called the House of Mirdain, which I believe in Elvish is Gwaith-i-Mirdain. And Sauron himself leads the assault, and he has a duel with Celebrimbor on the steps of this house. And Celebrimbor is defeated. Sauron takes the 9 rings there, and he tortures Celebrimbor into revealing the location of the 6, or rather the 7 rings. However, when Celeborn refuses to give him any information about the 3 Elven rings, he has Celebrimbor put to death, and he mounts his body on a pike, and he uses it. He parades it in front of his army as a standard. It's very grim, very gruesome, and that's the end of Celebrimbor, one of the most gifted and certainly one of the most gifted and crafty elves in the Second Age, and since probably Feanor, as I said before. So we're gonna get into a little bit of commentary in the battle here. It looks like the Smiths of Eregion are doing their best to hold the line on the walls here, and there are some victories and some defeats that are going on all over the city. That very stealth unit of spearmen tends to last quite long into the battle. I believe they actually have an epic charge at some point in here, but around the gates, the Elven spearmen are just being pushed back. There's just, despite the reinforcements they received from on top of the wall after defeating the enemies coming out of the siege towers, they're just not powerful enough to stop them. So you can see over here on the southern side of the city, the battle is going quite poorly. I'm trying to retreat some of my forces from the walls here to bring them inside the Citadel to make a final stand, trying to get as many troops as I can inside of there. But these groups are going to be cut off here by victorious forces from the south gate, and they are going to be completely destroyed. They're going to put up a hell of a fight, though, as you're going to see here. They're very brave, just charging in, meeting the enemy of the elves headlong, despite being horrendously outnumbered. There's maybe like 80 or so of them, possibly a little more. Yeah, there's about 79 there. And as you can see here, like, the troops at the gate were just completely annihilated, although there is this very brave unit of spearmen here, but they are too depleted to really hold back the storm. Up here on the walls, looks like our archers are holding the line against these Uruks as they come in, but they're being reinforced. There's just so many troops here pouring into the wall at multiple points that the elves of Eregion are just spread too thin. So it looks like I'm gonna take this group of spearmen here and use my my elven archers to cover the retreat and retreat them inside of the Citadel. Let's see what we're doing up here. This is where Celebrimbor is fighting right now. Unfortunately, I couldn't include Sauron in the battle because he tends to crash the battle, so it was impossible. But you can pretend that he's up there fighting with Celebrimbor, and it looks like those Smiths are still holding the line. That group of spearmen has dealt an incredible amount of damage to the forces of Mordor, especially being a spearman unit against sword units. Looks like I think I actually managed to get this group of Eldar two-handed swordsmen inside of the Citadel, so we'll see them later in a very brave last stand. Yeah, unfortunately, my troops here on the wall got caught between the hammer and the anvil here. Well, really, two hammers. I mean, the Black Númenóreans are no slouches in combat. They are not quite equal of the Eldar swordsmen, but they're pretty close. And yeah, the gate here has been obliterated. The forces of Sauron moving into the city to sack it. Our forces here, as you can see, are trying to fall back to a rally point here, just outside of the Citadel, so they can move into the city. The Smiths of Eregion are they're completely cut off. The entire southern host of Mordor has just swarmed against these two units, so they are unfortunately not going to make it into the Citadel. But we have managed to pull, as you can see, a fair amount of troops behind the wall. I believe we've got a unit of spearmen, a couple units of, maybe 2 units of spearmen, a couple units of swordsmen, and 3 archer units. So we did manage to salvage some of our army, which is dispersed all over the city, trying to defend their homes. Oh, it looks like, yes, these trolls here are going to try and harass our retreat. No, they're going to charge right in. Sometimes the AI can be a little indecisive about what it wants to do, and they'll get like within 2 feet of people and then turn around. But we're going to charge. We're going to turn around and we're going to charge with our units here. Going to try and slip our Eldarinway archers around them so that they don't take too many casualties, because we're going to need them on the walls afterwards. But I think they do manage to get clipped a little bit, but nothing too bad. Looks like there's some Uruks here who are moving up to support these trolls here. So we're going to. At this point, I'm desperately trying to kill these trolls before their reinforcements can arrive and bog down our fleeing troops here anymore. Then eventually they'd be surrounded and killed. So I don't want to have to fight any more rearguard actions. I have much of my army already engaged in doing such things, and it's costing me. It's costing me quite dearly in troops that I can't afford to lose. So it looks like we have managed to take down most of these trolls here. Yeah, it's just 2 left. Half the unit has been killed. And it looks like those orcs turned around and kind of thought better of it. They didn't really want to face the Eldar on such even terms. More or less even terms. I mean, the trolls are quite powerful. These are actually, these are mountain trolls, as you can see. They're not Olokai. They look like Olokai. Olokai have a different model and armor upgrade in my particular version of Moss. Yeah, we're just trying to organize my troops here on the wall. Trying to get a bit of a firing line going on here. And it looks like the orcs here have managed to find their courage and they're going to charge our retreating troops. But we're going to be able to just get them out of there in time. The elves are quite quick, even their heavier troops. But yeah, we managed to kill that troll just in the nick of time. And our troops are going to make it safely behind the walls of the Citadel of Ost-in-Edhil. Although it looks like maybe a couple of them are going to get caught. But for the most part, our troops are going to get away, which is good. Yeah, we've still got a couple units of spearmen in here. We're going to form them up in a shield wall because I'm afraid that some of these guys might get in. And its shield walls are quite nice for holding the line, especially in a narrow area like the archways. And you can see that very stout unit of spearmen that we saw earlier at the south gate. They're still fighting, but they're about to get flanked by reinforcements from outside the city. Mordor is just pouring their forces in. There's just so many of them. As you can see on the minimap there, we're completely surrounded and just utterly outnumbered. It's terrible. And Celebrimbor has been slain. You can see his little death icon over there on the side. Looks like that's just about all of the smiths. They lasted quite a while. As you can see, there's like a mountain of their foes all around them. Despite being heavily outnumbered, they managed to inflict some pretty severe casualties on the forces of Mordor. As you can see, it's just a massive battle. We had another unit of spearmen here. I was trying to pull off the walls, but unfortunately they got surrounded because I was trying to micro some other troops. And yeah, they're eventually going to be destroyed. The swordsmen we had over here, they got surrounded. You just saw them; they were all dead. All of our spearmen and swordsmen on the west gate have been completely destroyed, and Mordor's moving more troops into the city. As you can see here, they're just pouring all of their troops into multiple breaches across the wall. I mean, I think they've got something like 18 siege towers and numerous rams, so they really have the ability to surround us and to keep us busy, and it proved to be too much even for such powerful and elite elven troops to handle. Just the weight of numbers. Yep, these Noldor spearmen managed to hold out for quite a while. It's very impressive. You may notice they look a little different. That's part of some changes I've been making to my submod. We'll see whether or not I can get permissions to release it for general kind of consumption. There are some permission issues that I may have to deal with, so if those don't get put through, it may have to just get put on the back burner for the time being. But I'm always changing it. I'm always improving it. Oh, it looks like the forces of Mordor, after wiping out most of our troops on the in the lower levels of the city, they're amassing their troops for a final attack on the Citadel, which we are going to make them pay very, very dearly for. As you can see, our archers are taking a bite out of these guys. They're shooting down a few trolls. One of them, yeah, looks like they managed to peg one of those trolls, kill him, and wound several more, so that's very good. But Mordor has no shortage, as you can see. And we are very, very low on troops at this point. We've only got, 6 units, several of which have taken some casualties. Not significant casualties, but we need every elf we can get at this point. So yeah, they're moving up the ram. It's not going to be too long before they break down the gates and the final struggle for Ost-in-Edhil is going to commence. Yeah, they're just, look at this, is just a massive column of troops that they're moving in, supported by yet more trolls and yet more Uruks of various degrees of quality. Some of them have 2 hit points, which makes them quite a match for the elves. Not quite their equals, but they're much more able to stand up to them than their more numerous but weaker brethren. Yeah, you can just see they're just continuing to pour more reinforcements in. I mean, we've killed so many. Just look at the carnage here. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And you can see like a column of dead troops, but we just didn't have the numbers to defeat them. So it looks like the gate here is under attack. It's not going to be too long now. I think they're moving up another ram, but that ram is being staffed by trolls, so there's really no chance for us to sally out and kill their ram wielders or drivers. I don't know. But I'm pulling my archers off the wall here because they've all run out of arrows and ammunition. And I'm going to use them as a final line of defense. Well, that's the idea anyway. You'll see what happens, but it's not going to be too long now. Pretty soon the gate's going to collapse, and the only thing standing between the elves and complete annihilation, the elves of Ost-in-Edhil and complete annihilation, is their courage. So I'm going to see how that works out. We've got a fairly good, strong position here. It looks like the gate has finally gone down. Our elven spearmen here are going to meet the charge. For some reason the trolls have decided to pull back. I guess they're going to try and wear down our troops before they throw the trolls in to the fray to weaken the elven forces even further. So yeah, a number of Uruks and orc raiders are just pouring into the gate. There's some halberd men as well. It's just a large eclectic mix of Mordor troops. The spearmen are going to be the first to charge. They're actually going to do quite well for themselves initially. They're going to push Mordor back here outside the gate. But eventually they're going to be pushed back themselves, especially when these trolls get into the fray. I mean, these trolls are very much, at least in my version, I'm sure in many others as well, are elf crackers. They're very good for beating down large masses of heavy elven infantry like this that orcs would otherwise find it impossible to overcome. So yeah, they've just run in there and they're breaking faces all over the place. You can see our casualties start to mount up. We've only been in combat for a few seconds and there it goes. Our spearmen are just dropping like flies. And Mordor is pouring more and more troops into the breach here. And looks like a number of their troops here are... The AI gets a little weird in this, but I'm rationalizing this in order to preserve my kind of roleplay for the battle, as they're down in here pillaging the city, not necessarily following their orders directly or taking the long way round, if you catch my meaning. So they are pillaging the city, very rich city of the elves. But up here, the bulk of Mordor's troops have flooded into this breach, and it's going to be pretty devastating for both sides. But Mordor can afford the losses much better than the Elves of Edhil can. Of Ost-in-Edhil, I should say. So yeah, as you can see, we managed to push them a little ways back outside the gate. But now they're beginning to force their way into the archway just through sheer weight of numbers. And seeing this, I decide to sacrifice my depleted units of spearmen here and pull back the swordsmen, who are by far much more potent offensively than are the spearmen. So the spearmen are going to do what they do best and die to cover the retreat here of our Eldar swordsmen. We've still got a reasonably powerful army left. We've got 3 units of pretty much full strength, completely fresh Eldar archers who are actually quite powerful in melee, as well as a couple units of heavy two-handed swordsmen. So yeah, our troops here are falling back, and at the same time Mordor is pouring more and more troops into the gap, so they're just pressing their advantage. And the orcs are going to follow our troops in. They're going to chase them, and a general kind of front is going to start to take place, or at least some initial skirmishes are going to start to take place between our elven archers and the orcs who are flooding into the Citadel right now. There's quite a lot of Uruks, and there's just more and more of them outside. They've got some heavy two-handed axemen there. These guys are also engaged in pillage, running around throughout the city, slaying elves where they can find them and stealing their treasures and carting them back away to their camp. So our elven archers here have managed to beat back that first wave of Uruks, but they're going to send some more potent Uruk bodyguard units in here, which have the 2 hit points. And our troops are beginning to be worn down in terms of fatigue by these Uruks. But I'm going to continue to throw them in, despite how tired they are, just to support each other, so we don't take too many casualties to just this pathetic orc army, because we're going to need them later. Oh, watch here, this guy's about to get stabbed in the back. Oh, that's terrible. Dead. And these orcs are going to clash briefly with the elven archers, and it's not going to take very long for them to dispatch them, and then some more reinforcements are coming in, but I believe they actually think better of it and end up turning around. Much of their force here, just because of AI pathfinding issues, seems to have clustered in like a big blob outside the gate, as well as these guys down here, so they're, pillaging. But it looks like Mordor is trying to at least bring up some more reinforcements. These guys are just hanging out by the gate. I assume they're trying to find a door. They're not very bright. But we managed to beat back that initial force of orcs, but it looks like they tricked us and managed to sucker us out of position here. So what I'm going to do is to prevent these troops from being surrounded. I'm going to throw them into the fray and support the other two archer units who are already engaged. Yeah, we're going to take a look at the combat here. It's very brutal. The orcs, you can see them they're just falling over. They are no match for these cornered, very desperate and very skilled elves of Eregion, who have nothing to lose at this point. So they're just going to throw themselves at these orcs, and you can just see it's extremely effective. The orcs are going to try and countercharge, but they are just absolutely no match for our troops. But it looks like they're bringing in some troll reinforcements, so that could change things up a little bit. Trolls are, as I said, quite powerful, especially against elves. Very good against heavily armored units, because they have such high defense skill and such high damage that they can just get around the larger armor bonuses of the elves, especially those of the high elves. So it looks like the trolls here have joined the fray. It's not, but they end up thinking better of it and try to run away. So they probably take a little bit of damage there, but it's nothing too severe. So our elves are now very flush with victory, having beat back 2 waves of orcs. So they're going to charge around here, seeing the disarray of their foes, who are all clustered in a big kind of blob that's going to prove to be more of a hindrance for the orcs than a help, really, because the elves are going to be able to form themselves into a line and just beat down the orcs, and it's going to be a bloody slog. There's thousands of orcs inside of this host here, and yeah, there's just another general kind of front here is materialized just outside of the gate. The elves are trying to take back the gate and push the forces of Mordor outside, maybe try to get back up into the towers if they can, and begin putting some fire onto the orc host outside and inside the walls as well. Oh, watch this guy. Right there. Oh, I just got stabbed in the face. Ah, that's brilliant. So, seeing that my archers are doing quite well, I'm going to move up my swordsman units here to support them if they need to. But I'm not committing them as of yet, because I don't know how well we're going to do here, or if this is the place that I really want to make a final stand with my elves. So, as you can see, Mordor is still pouring more troops in. They've got some battered but still significant reserves just outside the walls, including a number of black Numenorians who are going to prove to be very potent against the elves later in the battle. Yeah, we're still... The front isn't shifting too much. The forces are very much evenly matched, despite the elves being extremely outnumbered. The orcs can't seem to push them out of their position. But it's a slow battle of attrition, and that is a fight that the orcs are always going to win, because there's so many of them. But eventually, the elves, through sheer determination, managed to dislodge most of the orc forces from the gate and push them out. For the most part, a few stragglers stay back to cover the retreat of their comrades. But it looks like, yeah, Mordor's bringing up some more reinforcements here who are fresh from pillaging the city, as well as some trolls. And the Nazgul there is meant to represent Sauron. I don't think the Nazgul actually exist at this point, but use your imagination. Unfortunately, I can't have Sauron in the battle. He just crashes it, so it's sad, but what can you do? I'll try and fix it for the finale at the Siege of Barad-dûr, but if I can't, well, I can't. So our troops here have been heavily depleted from this long struggle. You can just see there's a carpet of bodies where many of them have died. So seeing this, I'm going to try and pull my forces back. There's so few of them that if I tried to move them now, they would just be run down. There's no point in trying to salvage that few troops, because they'll just die anyway. But as you can see, they really gave as good as they got, even more so. There's just a carpet of dead orcs there, and very few elves in comparison. So you really start to see the power of elves here. And I happen to like this because I've been reading my copy of the Silmarillion, which I think is probably an older version at this point, but there's a comment in there about the orcs unaided being absolutely no match for the elves, especially for the Noldor. So that is why I'm quite satisfied with the balance in this. The trolls kind of even the odds in their favor, as you can see. But yeah, our troops, our remaining archers have all been completely destroyed, and the few remaining elves, maybe only less than 120 of them left, are making their stand under the archways into the center of the city. They're selling their lives dearly in order to protect the house of Gwaith-i-Mirdain, which you can see right here. The Gwaith-i-Mirdain, or the House of Mirdain, if you prefer. But there's just not enough of them left to really repulse the forces of Mordor. It's only a matter of time. But these guys actually managed to do quite well for themselves, surprisingly well. The valor of elves is not to be lightly esteemed. Despite the trolls and the numerous forces, the varied forces that are opposing them, these Elrond swordsmen are actually going to hack down all of these Mordor forces. They do take casualties in the process, but it's extremely disproportionate. And most of them are coming from these bloody trolls right here, as you can see. They're just being a complete pain in the ass, knocking everybody over, disrupting formations. That's really what they're balanced around doing. So you can see an elven captain in the corner there trying to rally his troops as the hosts of Mordor push even farther into the city against these flagging elven forces. But you can see the carnage here. It's total. And yeah, most of those trolls and those orcs were destroyed. They were repulsed. But Mordor throws in some fresh Uruk reinforcements, and at this point the swordsmen are very, very tired. So there's not really a whole lot that they can do to stand up to these. So they're on much more even footing with these numerous orcs than they otherwise would be. So it's actually not an easy battle for them, as you would otherwise think it to be. But just look at the carnage here among the gate. Like, the elves, the casualties have been total, but many, many hundreds of, if not thousands of orcs have perished just trying to take the gate to the Citadel alone. And that's not including all of the combat that took place in the lower levels of the city. So these guys actually managed to, ignore that completely. It's a bit of a screw up. But these guys managed to repulse these orcs here. As you can see, they start to flee. It's probably another feint here. The orcs are very cunning, and they turn around after managing to pull a few of the elves away from the groups of their comrades. So it looks like Mordor's going to throw some trolls into the mix as well, or maybe they're not. The AI, as I said, is quite weird in this battle. But the orcs are definitely not fighting fair. They're suckering us out of position with some fairly good tactical maneuvers. I gotta hand it to the AI on in that regard. They're doing quite well, and it looks like they've managed to surround us here with a small force. But for the most part, they're not really a match for the elves, tired though they may be. Yeah, you can just see these orc raiders here just being cut down in droves by these desperate elven survivors here. But in the meantime, Mordor is, pardon me, still marshalling more forces inside the gate to throw against these tired and depleted elves. It's not going to be very long now before they make their final stand. But they have nothing to be ashamed about, as you can see here. Yeah, more and more forces pour in. Some of them make it inside, pardon me, and then turn around. It's just AI sort of strangeness. I don't really know what to do about that. Some battles it happens, some it doesn't. But yeah, the few remaining orcs here, there's less than a handful of them are going to flee. But as they do that, these Uruk halberds here, these fresh Uruk reinforcements, are going to come around the corner, supported by trolls, and it's going to be more than the elves, the remaining elves of Ost-in-Edhil can really handle. But despite this, they're going to make a very brave final charge against these advancing Mordor halberds here. Let's check it out. Completely awesome. Absolutely incredible. And they, yeah, as you can see, they've swept away most of these halberds. In fact, they're crushing them very quickly. Yeah, one of them dying right here. Oh, stabbed, and then gets his head cut off. But unfortunately, the trolls get into the mix, and that's when the game is over. Unfortunately, these elves here, they can't support each other. They're being scattered by just the weight and violence of these mountain trolls. And it's more than they can do to keep themselves alive, let alone support their friends. As you can see, many of the elves here are falling very quickly once the trolls join the battle. And there's yet more reinforcements, heavy two-handed axemen and halberdmen that are joining the fray. Which, if not for these trolls, the Ellarinwe swordsmen here probably would have done much better against them. Yeah, you can hear a horn going off. One of the Eldar captains is trying to rally his troops. Probably the bannerman right here, who's still fighting. He's trying to defend himself against an orc halberdman. But there's no strength left here for the elves. There's less than a dozen of them left at this point, so the orcs charge right through them, just the weight of their numbers pulling down the remaining elves, and that's going to be the end of the elves of not Lindon, but of Ost-in-Edhil. It's just incredible here. It's getting a little choppy, unfortunately. There's a lot of troops just flooding into one area all at once, but that is going to be the end of the battle, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. That is the fall of the Elven fortress of Ost-in-Edhil. As you can see, our Elven forces, they did very, very well for themselves. They fought hard, and they deserve the renown that they received. So that's it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed, and take care.